So, John Wolpert, tell me what's happening with Baseline.
Well, hey Spencer, it's great to see you. I love the look that you've got there on camera. I'd love to see more content from you down here in the Southeast in the U.S.
Thank
Um,
you.
Baseline is or the Baseline protocol is an open source, open standards exercise being run by Oasis, which is a venerable um, organization for standards. You might know it behind things like SGML and SAML and AMQP and MQPTT and all of these really deep internet standards, often feeding into IEEE and ITU and other bodies. So the Baseline protocol is a protocol. It's not a coin. It's not a platform. It's not a product. It's not a scheme. It's not a chain. It is a way, a technique for using an always-on tamper-resistant state machine, like a public blockchain, as a piece of middleware to ensure the consistency of records held on traditional systems like SAP or Oracle or Dynamics or Mongo or Neo4j, any database you like, right? I think often in the blockchain world, we just like all previous technology revolutions, we tend to forget all the other good technologies that it's like everything's got to be this. Blockchains are not terribly good databases. What are good databases are databases, right? So there's still a lot of utility for databases, and really a database run by a good administrator who knows what they're doing has the best that we can muster when it comes to surveillance resistance, right? So when we talk about security, a lot of people who don't understand blockchain think of it like a highly secure database. Somehow it's like this magical secure database that gives you transparency. Well, most businesses don't really want transparency, at least not to the point of not being able to control compartmentalization. I don't think most companies want their competitors to know everything about their invoices. I don't think that most companies in the supply chain of a country's food supply really want just anybody to know exactly where all the food is and how it's getting there, or how all of our energy systems are running, or the SCADA networks and their systems being able to control them. I'm pretty sure we don't want just anybody to be able to access and control those things. So we don't really want transparency. What we want is the ability for those who should know things to know them as seamlessly and as simply as possible. But we don't want to lose all control over who sees what. And even a private blockchain has problems with that, because a private blockchain, and anybody with a node, has the ability to, or it has the potential to be everybody else's worst day if they get hacked by Mr. Robot, right? So, because everybody's got a copy. And projects that I've worked on in the past, like Hyperledger Fabric, we tried to get around that with things like channels, but it gets really complex. It's just not a very good system at the core for the purpose of surveillance resistance. That is, keeping information in a compartmentalized way. Blockchains aren't the right pattern for that. Databases aren't. That said, databases are terrible, especially if they're only run by one company, at tamper resistance, because the administrator of that database can do what they want, right? So, and a private blockchain is slightly more tamper resistant because you've got to collude with some number of other entities, and somebody's going to find that out. But it's not supremely tamper resistant because, well, I mean, it's not like a bunch of banks never colluded, right? So that's the other side of the problem. Public blockchains, like and large ones, large well-established ones like Bitcoin and Ethereum, are as tamper resistant as people have been able to arrive at so far. So if you can combine a tamper resistant public blockchain and then give it no information. And in other words, don't use it to store data or run transactions, but rather to store proofs and run validation on those proofs of the consistency between different records in traditional databases. Then you have the best of both worlds, because you and I can have, for example, I can send you a purchase order from my SAP system to your dynamic system or to your spreadsheet. It can baseline a spreadsheet. And now you have a row in your table and I have a row in my table that says this is purchase order. And the public blockchain is, if it now holds a proof that says you and I verifiably have the same information. I didn't have to primary my systems for you to jack into my system. You didn't have to do the same for me. And we didn't have to set up some $1 million integration bus. We just used this always on thing, and we don't have to spend any money on capital expense to set it up. We have some operating expense because we're going to have to pay for those transactions, but those are minimal. And there are companies now setting up services so that you don't even have to hold crypto to pay for those transactions. You can just pay in fiat. So that way you don't have crypto on your books just to run your IT department. But this way, your $1 billion, I used to work for a company, I'm pretty sure we spent about $1 billion on our ERP, order to cash, enterprise platform for managing supply. And now that system can not just know what we think we know, which is all it really ever did. And all we knew was what we thought we knew if we entered data correctly, right? Now it can, on a record by record basis, atomically, I can know what records I have that are verifiably the same as the records that my counterparties have. And that's pretty useful. Kind of boring, but useful. And once you have that, you can start doing more interesting things like controlling the workflow of a high integrity workflow. You can say this proof also governs any proofs that come after this work step. So we have a master service agreement. We're going to baseline that. Now we have a purchase order. That purchase order's proof will only get on the mainnet if the rules of the master service agreement were followed in the generation of that proof, basically in the sharing of that purchase order. So you could record the purchase order, but if it didn't follow the rules, the proof of it will never get on the blockchain. And then all we have to all agree to is say, we don't honor anything that doesn't have a proof. And that's it. That's all the baseline is. So we're using, I think, a clever way of using something that was built for finance and cryptocurrency and other things. We're just using it for boring old IT to make sure that our systems are less prone to disputes and getting off page with each other. Counterparty risk is a big problem. It's a really boring one, but it's big. And that's why we always say in the baseline community, which is now over 800 people, hundreds of companies, we say, boring is the new exciting.
John, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate the insight that you brought to this. You give me a lot to think about.
Thanks, Spencer. It's great to talk to you, and happy to do it again.
Again, thank you, John.